Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we'll be looking at building a realistic recreation of an actual railroad site. This site is based on the Golden Spike National Historic Park at Promontory Summit in Utah. We are using the 3D Train Studio version 5 for this layout. It's the newest version. It has a new event control system and a number of other refinements which make it better than the old version. We're looking now at the base plate, the ground, and that's the first thing to be put in. And we'll select that in a second or so. Okay, we've done that, and then we'll be looking at some of the properties of the base plate. The dimensions of the base plate are in millimeters, 8,000 millimeters by 4,000 millimeters, and the reason I'm using millimeters is because it's much easier conversion, because a foot in real life is equal to 3.5 millimeters. Once we've set the base plate, we need to go ahead and paint a texture on it. And we've selected grass, and we paint the whole thing with grass, and then we adjust things a little bit afterwards. And once the whole thing is painted, then we can start laying the track. And here we're laying the track from the east end to the west end, and we start at 2 millimeters height and adjust the terrain, then go up to 4 millimeters and adjust again, and 6 and 8 and 10, and then drop it back down to 9 millimeters. That gives us track that's just barely buried in the ballast. Now there is a turning Y at the east end of the track. And this is an important feature because it allows the trains to be facing the correct way when they reach the west end of the park where the last spike site is. Jupiter takes the right track up and then backs down the track towards the last spike site. 119 takes the left hand side, and by taking the left hand side it's still facing the same direction and is ending up facing Jupiter when it arrives at the last spike. This is the track plan from the east end through the turning Y, and then travels along until it comes to the road, and then crosses the road, splits to a Union Pacific spur, the main line, and then later a Central Pacific spur. Here's the crossing over the road. This is made out of individual ties put together. And on the other side of the crossing, the track texture switches to the historic grade with the old hand-hewn ties, iron rail which rusts, and individual spikes and so forth. You can see here now the spur on the left hand side that goes past the visitor center, and the main line on the right side. The tree you see is an indicator of where the trains should start signaling to let people know they're approaching. The main line continues to the last spike site. The last spike is a polished laurel wood tie, and then on the other side of that tie the track switches to Central Pacific 1869 grade, cut from Laurelwood and that continues all the way down to the west end of the layout. You will notice in various places there are track switches. We're looking at one now. A track switch has 4 pieces, 2 base pieces, a signal arm, and then an invisible signal arm indicated by the long arrow. Now, these are actually based on real track signals in the prototype, and in a minute we'll take a look at that. You can see here there's 2 of them, one standing straight up and one tilted on the actual trackage. These ones have a red and white stripe on them. There's also one by the engine house with a slightly different design on it, 2 red dots. And then behind it is another type of switch. And we'll go ahead now and we'll switch both of these switches so you can see what the other set looks like, or the other signal condition. You'll notice that the one arm has swung and the switch behind it is also swung over, exposing the blue arrow to indicate which direction that switch is set for. Another important feature of old railroads was the telegraph lines. The telegraph poles used in this are actually part of the railroad program. They're actually designed for carrying electricity, but they work good for the telegraph. And then the lines are cylinders that are stretched way out and shrunk way down and then colored a brownish. And then next to the end of the tracks is the engine house. It's animated, the doors open, and there's light for the windows that turns on, and that's all controlled by the program. We'll go ahead and open the doors now, and you can see the windows are all lit and the locomotives are inside. They're parked on inspection pits, and then in front of the 119 is an ash pit. And we'll go ahead and we'll fire up and bring Jupiter out of the shed. And there it is under steam, with the smoke billowing out the smokestack, steam shooting out the cylinders. There's a bell on it that rings, and then a whistle next to the cab that also blows. So it's very realistic looking. And then this is the repair shed located next to the engine house. Be sure to stay tuned. In a few days we'll be looking at the western half of the layout and the features in it.